Okay, we are on. I don't trip over it.
Go check it out. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the special town board meeting. We are located at W1125 Highway 106, Palmyra Town Hall, Palmyra, Wisconsin, Wednesday, September 10th at 5 p.m. Certification of compliance with open meetings law.
Yes, the agenda was posted in compliance with the statutes.
And I think we will stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Gajewski.
Here.
Haynes. Sauter.
Here. Number one, workshop for 2026 budget year. Any and all town budget matters may be discussed during this workshop. We're off.
Oh, something just turned the airplane mode on. Sorry. Yeah.
That thing's telling us how we hook up everything.
It's supposed to.
Oh.
Alright, we're connected on so let's do single clear this on. There we go.
Oh, wow.
Wrong one. All good? So, tail end of the last meeting, Rob and I kept going through expenses. I think when you left, we were somewhere in the neighborhood of tax refunds, board salary, that kind of stuff. So he and I went through and more or less reviewed things, and then above and beyond that, put in a few numbers. Since then, I've gone through and populated essentially the 26 proposed budget, generally based off of the 2025 budget.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So just taking averages for all these numbers, they are relatively similar over on this column here. You can see where I'm scrolling.
Yeah.
This whole column is generally similar to that whole column. Taking into account, actually what I might do, taking into account some of the knowns that we do know at this point. Where's my share? So,
I'm gonna get some glasses.
Yeah, I'm having
Can't read it.
a time and I just cleaned mine.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's all right though.
here, why don't we do hide 2024 for the time being, then I can make this whole thing, whoops, not quite that big. Is that a little better?
Yeah,
Okay.
for us old people.
Okay. So focus cell essentially, just so you know, this green line in here is going to highlight the row and then the column that I'm on, hopefully to help highlight where I'm clicking around. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So in the big picture of all of this stuff, as a roughed out starting point, we obviously had a fire and EMS committee meeting, fire and EMS contract meeting roughly a week ago with the village. This big scary bold red number here, 488,668, is the number that they're currently anticipating based on the proposed budget that the department has submitted to the village based off of that calculation. Okay. So I went through last night and more or less boilerplated all of our expenses over into 2026 based off of the 25 budget again, with a few knowns and a few unknowns. One of the things that came up in conversation last meeting was the emergency management fund. When we created this 2 years ago, it was the first time, and we put $5,000 in there just as a starting point.
Yeah.
In 25, the theory was we were going to fund $50,000
Yep.
based off of all the tree removal that we had to do in 2024.
Right.
And that if we used, in this case, let's say 15,000 in 2025, that we would fund.
15 again to get it back to the 50.
Correct. Yes, and that 50 would kind of be allocated or unallocated based on every single year's rolling $50,000 balance, if that
In
makes sense.
case, yeah, something
Right.
happens, which is a very good idea.
So 26 proposes 15 currently, just to back up where we think we're going to be for 25
Yeah.
to get that back to 50. We can obviously do a whole bunch of different stuff, but I'm just really trying to rough out the big picture financial disposition for 2026 as it sits. The other bright yellow number in here is the airport. We had, and I don't remember what meeting it was at that it was discussed, if it was the budget meeting that we had in August or one of the other ones. I don't know what that specific amount for the tax the village sent us was.
2,000 something, I think.
Okay, so if that's gonna stay consistent, we should be able to generally dial that number into whatever that number is, because last year we budgeted 20 as an expense, and then one spot.
It's my understanding with the deeds, they will get billed individually now.
Okay, so that's another reason why I've got this bright yellow font in here, is to call out, like, hey, we need to look at this.
I think it should be 0.
Yes.
Okay, so in the
It's all done, as far as I know, right? It's all ready to go.
moving forward piece of the puzzle, oh look, the mouse is still on. In the moving forward piece of the puzzle, that's something that technically the way this budget is drafted, just like this year, right here, we had 20,000 as an expense, and up here we had 20,000 as a revenue. It was a net zero transaction.
Right.
I've got it shown the same way. This is super hard to read, I understand, but it's 20 grand as a revenue and 20 grand as an expense. So right now, it isn't affecting the overall position of the budget. It's just in there, and we can verify as we get closer to make sure that, you know, if it's gonna be 0, it's 0 on both sides. We can figure out what the actual, this was another, this 8269 number was another thing that we were gonna drill into. I get it, the October through December estimate matters as we get closer to the drafting of this budget, but sitting in the first week of September, quite frankly, whatever is going on this year, we'll get all that facts and figures in there. The end run number of that is the important one to see what fund balance for 25 looks like. Are we over or are we under? Right? And if we're under budget, what is that number, and how much of that number are we planning to either roll directly into 2026 to offset a different expense somewhere else, or keep as our fund balance policy prescribed that was passed in 22 to try to get to that 25% fund balance amount of the budget.
Which is approximately 250,000.
Ballpark. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
just a couple questions.
Yep.
Let's move up to streets and highway maintenance.
Yep.
We budgeted what in 25?
5,000.
How much have we used?
Currently 105. And this should actually say August, because I did not get
$105?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
how,
a couple of things.
okay,
In this 5,000, I gotta go back here. Highway and street, 5,000, this guy. So, again, we've got a handful of different things going on. Number one, highway and street maintenance is kind of that miscellaneous expense that goes to highway related things. Not mowing, not patching per se, as in spring and fall patching, hot mix, potholes, not ice and snow, and not trees. It's the rest of the stuff that goes along with it. We had Northwest shave off the shoulder of the road on Marsh Road. We had them fix the shoulder of the road on South Shore Drive in 3 different spots and put in some hot mix. Those like miscellaneous, not really a road project, not really a specific thing project, is where the miscellaneous goes. So, a couple of different things. One is we have not done a formal budget amendment for the meeting in August where it was approved for Northwest to do South Shore and Marsh Road.
we'll use that up.
So what we did is, of this 160 that we budgeted for ice and snow, right, we're currently sitting at 55,000 of 160. Okay. If we use another $50,000 for preseason winter, end of this year winter, we would be at 105. So part of what we did the last budget meeting was to move some of that $55,000 gap and use 10,000 and whatever it was of that to put it into highway maintenance for town to be able to do Marsh Road, South Shore Drive, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so eventually the budget is actually going to reflect different numbers than what this is, because we haven't formally passed a budget amendment yet to move that, right? And then this would go down to, I'm going to use numbers, 150,000 for a budget, and this would go up to 15,000, right?
I'm sorry.
The ice and snow
Okay.
and the highway maintenance.
All right.
When we did that, we did Marsh and South Shore. We specifically, in the motion, made take it out of this fund,
Right, I
put
remember
it in
that,
that
I
fund,
remember
right?
that,
The actual formal part of that will be a budget amendment that says this account negative, this account positive. Okay. Same thing early this spring. We had the village jet out culverts on North Blue Spring Lake Drive,
yeah.
Pine Drive, and South Shore Drive. Okay, I think it was $1,100, whatever that amount was. Same kind of thing. Take it out of ice and snow, put it into general highway. That will be part of that same budget amendment. But rather than doing a budget amendment every 2 months, quite frankly, I was kind of waiting towards this time of year so that we can say, okay, what did we do in 2025 so far, make the budget amendment so that then the 25 budget spreadsheet is as close as we can get it during that process.
Okay, so let's go down just like one at a time. So 62 to 63.
60.
Line 62.
Oh, okay.
60.
Sure.
So ice and snow, we budgeted 160, you're gonna stay at 160.
Yep.
Mowing, 33,000. But I'll tell you what, I think that we spent 14 and I told them not to go over 10 on this last deal because that only leaves us. You know what I mean? I told them, shut it off, get what you get done. I don't want to see it touch 10,000. I think it was 9,700. And, because we only got 33,000, you know?
Yep.
But I've got one more question on that, because we do need probably, as I drive around, 1 day of brushing. Things are really grown this year, we all know that. But does that come out of mowing? Brushing?
To me, it would either be tree service or it would be mowing.
One of the two, okay.
Yeah.
Patching,
However we want to really look at that.
patching, we got 33,000. is the estimated total, but we only budgeted 15.
Correct. So we're also gonna have to do a budget amendment to move, let's just say, $18,000 out of ice and snow into patching.
And right now, 66 highway and street, we're just gonna leave it at 0 at this time, correct?
That is where I have it set. Again, the highway construction part of it is always, to me, drafting the budget, the biggest piece of the pie that we can have direct influence on how much or how little we do. So putting it at 0, and the reason why, if we do this, wow, let's keep going.
Tree service, 50 grand, again, I suppose that's good. Now, what I'm seeing is that we've spent about 25, we got 25 left.
Correct.
Is
This
what I'm
is an estimate currently, yes.
Right.
So this 24,526 number,
Yeah.
that is other than the bills that we got from Monday night, which is why this now says August instead of September, because the September bills are not included in this. But
Well, nothing's been done in September, as far as I know.
there was a bill, there was emergency tree work,
Oh,
which realistically, we can start deciding what we want to do. Do we want to put it in emergency management, like we have done so far this year, and move some money out of tree service into emergency management to offset that? Because we haven't done proactive, we haven't done $50,000 worth of proactive tree service this year.
yeah, because we were
We've
scared
done-
to use it up right away, obviously.
Correct. We've done 25,000 of proactive and 15,000 of reactive plus Monday night's bills. So
Right.
let's just call it 25 forward and 20 reactionary, right? So we can choose to say, okay, first of all, do we want to back fund emergency management so that we kind of wipe it off the table, and then we budget 0 in 26
For emergency management.
for emergency management, because we've got the fund balance of all the expenses, all the revenues, right? At some point, it's still just a budget, and if, like, highway construction, this 410 or 460 number is actually more like 103, 173, 178. Okay?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. We can still choose whether or not we're going to do any proactive tree service between now and the end of the year, or if we're going to save the taxes that we collected to offset some of the hole. So let me get to the hole. This number up at the top always stays there regardless of where the page scrolls.
Yeah,
That is currently where we sit,
negatively.
short $215,000.
That's because of the fire 480.
That's because, if you look here, the difference between 25 and 26 is $238,000, right?
Mhm.
So the fact that we're technically 15 grand in the black for 2026 without fire and EMS.
Well, that
Not
was,
without-
was positive.
Not without fire and EMS, but status quo of fire and EMS. We would be able to divide $15,278 or whatever the hell the difference is between all of the rest of the funds that we have as normal expenses, if that makes sense.
Right, that does make sense.
So this number here, I highlighted in a different cell, just as the difference maker between 250, 178 and 488, 668. That's all this number represents. Okay. But we are currently short $274 for the 26 budget. If we take this as it's presented, which is basically a status quo of 2025 minus road work, because there is a 0 road work amount in there. crack fill, chip seal, paving, whatever. All of that is not included
Well,
because it's a zero number right now.
one thing is, and it's a negative thing, well, you did go up to 25,000 with that, okay, you did raise that.
That was one of the things Rob and I talked about
Okay.
last meeting when you went to
Yeah,
airport.
because we're short, more than double, 18,000 there, 19.
So if we do C1,
Mark, if we start repaving roads, we won't have to patch them. Patch on tap, patch.
slow.
Are you keeping up with them, Michelle?
Well, it's easier now that I can read it. With my eyesight.
So let's just look at patching.
Yeah.
Okay, so in these years, it was just lumped in with highway and street maintenance for town.
Well,
That's why these numbers are so big, and then it goes down to 114, like half of that makes
Yeah.
up these numbers over
Right.
here. Okay, 24 was the first year that we had these account numbers to code things into, because ice and snow mowing and patching were not separate line items. My computer's done. Does that make sense? But in so far in 20, where are we? Patching. In 25, we spent 33,800, and in 24, we spent 53,500. So moving that amount up for 26 seemed like a reasonable expectation, at least at the moment. Now, 2025, there's my baker's box still. We chip sealed roughly 8.5 miles of road. Okay.
yeah.
Off the top of my head, that's my recollection, 8.5 miles. So, to the point of if we fix more roads, we patch less, which is pretty darn accurate. So the 30 grand that we spent in chip seal or in patching is essentially the equivalent of doing 2 miles of chip sealing, right? So let's turn the curve on what we're spending the money on, which I think was everybody's goal 2 years ago as well.
Right.
Fix the roads. It takes less annually to then quote unquote maintain them because number one, they're in better condition before they get to the point of needing potholes, yada yada yada. Kind of same game. So I don't know if I can still shrink these guys back. Oops, shrink these guys back down so we can read this. But unless you want to look at any of the 21 through 24 actual amounts.
Well, 21 or 2 insurers that will be on there.
Okay.
Well, not anymore, we're moving away from it, at least for our purposes today. So is this where you want to talk a little bit about, do you want to do some more chip sealing or something? But Jesus, you can't chip seal over 55 piled up pothole fills.
Okay.
So what do we got left?
Couple of things. Couple of things that I think would be good outcomes of tonight. We now are aware of the fact that with a status quo budget for 2026 and removing any proactive road maintenance, we're 215,000 in the hole.
So you're telling me right now, we're 215 in the hole, if no trees fall over.
No, we would have
Oh no, because you're still
$50,000, correct. So here's where we start doing our diligence. My point is we need to either do one of two things: figure out who we're gonna shake down for 215 grand, or start cutting money out of the budget, or look at alternative funding sources, which at this point, what we have for alternative funding sources is debt service. So, if we take 50 grand out of here, and I put in 0 for tree service, we go to 165 in the hole. If we take out this and make it 0, we go to 150 in the hole. So now we got no tree service, no emergency management refund, which would mean we would still have 35 grand designated towards emergency responses, trees, road flooding, whatever it is. Now we need to come up with 150 grand.
Well, obviously, we have to have trees and there's just no doubt about it.
Or we roll the dice and we use what we have for fund balance. So, at the moment, 273, this is going to be 84,000, yeah, 84,000 plus 105.
Yeah.
Was the note? Was 100?
Oh, yeah, it's
105.
105, I didn't know what you were talking about, yes.
So, let me undo that. That goes to 0. We know that as of July we pulled this 273. Right? That was farmer. And we're technically 168,000 in the hole, 169,000 in the hole by the end of the year if we don't borrow any more money. Right? We've authorized another draw on the line of credit and the note, which puts us 20 grand in the black at the end of the year. If all of the rest of the estimates don't change, which I can tell you it's going to a little bit, but just follow me in concept here for a few minutes. We can take this $20,000 of fund balance from 2025 and apply it to trees in 2026. Okay? So then what we do is over here.
So what you're saying now, you'd only have 20,000 in tree service, not 70,000, 50 plus
Correct.
20.
Yeah, it would be, because we're starting at 0 right here, right? So if we take this 20 grand that we have left over at the end of this year, and we say up here, we are going to put it in this line item, $20,000. Okay, that now means we're at 130 in the hole. Then we go put $20,000 for tree service down here, and we go back to 150 in the hole. Follow where I'm going? It's just the money moved from one year to the next. We either allocate it or we leave it as undesignated reserve. It's kind of the two options that we have.
Or are we gaining on our...
We're not. We don't, but we're not as short for the budget and or a levy exceedance request or debt service.
So let's just say that they hold at this
I'm
4.8.
going to undo both of these just so that we don't.
Right, let's do that.
Okay.
So let's just for the sake of what we're doing tonight, they ain't gonna budget off of 488, we don't have any choice.
Okay.
Then we're gonna have to try and sell the constituents on 150 or 210. About
Yeah,
210,
yes.
probably.
The answer is
150 or 210, we're gonna have to try and sell constituents on.
the answer is yes, and it depends on what we put in here. If we take tree service, right, and we say instead of 50, we want to fund 20,000. And for emergency management, we do want to put the 15,000 back in that we use this year. Then we're asking for 185. So it's any variable of what the expenditure side of this budget looks like is going to affect this number up here, the 185. That is one of two things, realistically, and I'll say it out loud: debt service, levy exceedance request. It's the only way that towns generate money, and we don't have 185,000. We do this the other way. We take those two numbers back out. Okay. Now we're not doing any tree service. We're not doing any road work. We're not replacing any money we taxed for and used in 2025 for emergency management. We're just going to float this thing 1 year. Okay. We don't have $150,000 sitting in a bank account that we can say, like what they did in 2022 for 2023, we're going to pull 109 grand out and balance the budget because we have 109 grand here. We don't have 150, 273 to balance the budget with cash that we have on hand. Period. We don't have it. We're right back to where the town was realistically in call it November of 2022. We don't have enough money. I shouldn't say that. Would have been 23 when we were asking for a 250 exceedance request, and then we literally cut the road work out to make the budget balance.
Right.
But we're still there. 2 years has not shifted the earth where it's currently.
So that's basically the same thing when they tried to pass the EMS levy increase. It's floated along somehow right to the table here today. It's still there.
Yeah.
Well, they tried to get 150 or 160, whatever it was, and all it's done is just keeps haunting us all the way from that period of time.
So here's what has changed. Okay, I want to go one more to do that so that that's at least representative. Let's say instead of 488, we're going to do that times 1.15%, 15% increase. Okay, so if the village would have come back with a 15% increase and the cost would have went to 187,
287.
I'm sorry, 287, we'd be good by 50 grand. If the village came back and they said we want a 30% increase, we would be good to 13 grand. So, two different issues. The haunting part is the fact that the town has no money. There was 109 in the LGIP, they took it out to balance 2023. We had $400, plus the floatable cash in the checking account.
$400 when we started work.
Okay. That issue continues to haunt because you can't build reserves in 2 years unless you're going to tax for reserves, which is technically illegal. To a point. If you have a fund balance policy, okay, you can tax for it. But because of the position that we were in, we have a levy max, right? A levy limit. The only other way to generate money is to borrow for it or to ask for more money. So last year, instead of the 147 that we asked for, we could ask for 247. We only needed 147 to balance the budget. We could have asked for 247 and put $100,000 aside for years where maybe fire and EMS goes up by $230,000. And you're halfway there, right? Like, we could have done that, but we didn't. We tried to be as conservative as we can to ask for the levy exceedance amount to balance the budget for 2025, which obviously passed and yada, yada, yada. So, yes and no is the answer to that. The big haunt this year is this $238,000 increase. That to me, in 37 minutes, quite frankly, is the nuts and bolts of where we are right now. All the rest of these numbers, they're going to change slightly, but the big picture of this entire drive through the budget season is the fact that we are somewhere between $150,000 and $215,000 short, depending on what our budgetary ask within these operations.